Welcome to Political Capital. My next guest was a regular in offices like this. He was twice finance minister, and his last tenure was characterized by harassment and the threat of arrest. Pravin Gordhan sits down with me to discuss why politics should matter to every South African. I would like to begin by asking you this. Are you fearful that the movement you have spent so much of your life fighting for liberation could end up in dire straits after December?
Well, let's call it a hopeful fearfulness. So hope is more dominant at this point in time, and the hope comes from the fact that one hopes that all of us, despite what our interests might be, whether we captured or not captured or whatever the case might be, want to eventually see this country work, want to see all of our people benefit and improve their standard of living, want our economy to grow at 4 and 5% and create jobs for young people, and that whatever interests we have, that becomes the more important and the preeminent concern, and we are able to put our own self-interest into some kind of perspective, if you like. Fearful that might not be the case, that there might be the few who are so desperate to hang on to the privileges that they've had, the inside track that they've had to looting state resources and disrupting state institutions, and that is something that they want to actually hold on to, and would then sacrifice the good name that our country has.
Trevor Manuel came out with a statement saying that he's more fearful of the December conference, considering all the cash that was being used to grease palms of delegates in Mangaung. Are you worried about the same thing? Is it going to take money to deliver some sort of government?
Money will certainly be the resort, or the final resort, that some people would rely upon to try to persuade delegates that they need to vote in a particular way.
Is this a common practice in the ANC?
Let's say it's a practice in most political organizations for one reason or another. It's happened, as Mr. Manuel said. That's why we call it the brown envelope phenomenon, and a lot of people get upset when you mention brown envelopes. But anyway, whether it's white envelopes, brown envelopes, or blue envelopes, if they contain green notes, that's the main concern that we actually have. But at the same time, there are two other factors. One is intimidation, that I think is beginning to emerge in some quarters, and disruption at a branch level long before you get to conference. And the second is that, notwithstanding all of this, there are a very large number of democratically minded people in the ANC who actually would want a good democratic outcome.
Whom would you like to see lead the ANC and therefore lead the country?
But I've said that many times before. I think Mr. Ramaphosa is the right candidate, and he's the right candidate because he's got qualities that I think the country needs at this point in time. Qualities which reflect a good analytic grasp of what we need as a country, both in the economic sense and in the social sense, a vast experience base in the trade unions, a legal mind that's well trained, a business mind that's equally well trained, that could guide our economy in the right kind of direction, a negotiator of note, because compromise and negotiations are part of everyday life in government, and a leader who's willing to be bold.
Mr. Gordhan, the ANC cannot be cleaned up by one victory of any faction in a December conference. How difficult will this cleanup job be?
No, getting our country back on track and getting the ANC back on track is something that's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take an excellent team of people in all spheres of government, but indeed in civil society, business, and elsewhere as well. And it certainly isn't, as you're pointing out, going to be an easy job.
Why did you decide to stay in the ANC after all that you've been through? Why did you decide to fight from within?
No, because many of us, if you like, activists who've committed themselves to the values of the ANC, which are now being undermined by some people, We've committed ourselves to building a genuine democracy, and we've committed ourselves to a set of policies which, if implemented properly, can actually make a difference in this country. And one of the things we've learned inside government and outside government as well is having nice position papers and policy papers is one thing. Having an effective machinery of state to actually implement those policies is quite another. And that is why it's so painful to see the undermining of key institutions, both in our economy and in our society.
We've heard a lot about state capture, but yet we've seen very little action with regards to holding people accountable. Why is that?
Because part of the definition of state capture is that you can't be held accountable. Because part of state capture is those agencies that are responsible for holding people accountable are not doing their job. And their job at the moment is to defend state capture and to ensure that those of South Africans, whether in the ANC or outside of the ANC, who speak their mind, who speak the truth, who reveal the truth, must be persecuted.
But Mr. Gordhan, these are your comrades from your movements. You speak together in the NEC. Why can't the ANC speak amongst itself and be the ANC of Oliver Tambo, the ANC of Z.K. Matthews, the ANC of Chief Albert Luthuli? Why can't...
Yeah, but that's our aspiration. Many activists have said that we want to restore those values. We want to restore that kind of integrity that leadership reflected. And importantly, that kind of commitment that they had to the people of South Africa, that they commit their lives to improving the people. But, you know, as societies develop, as democracies develop, and as the economic environment changes, not just in our country, but across the world as well, greed becomes a factor. It becomes insatiable, meaning you can't satisfy this need to keep accumulating money for yourself. You then develop vested interests of different kind in different parts of society, and you don't want to give up that which you have.
Ever since your tenure as finance minister ended in March, what do you make of where we are now? Have we even taken any strides towards where we need to be?
No, regrettably, I think political and other considerations have become more important than either living up to the values in the Constitution or doing what is right for the economy. And we are now tending towards that which we assured the investment community, for example, in South Africa and elsewhere, and indeed different sections of South African society, that we would not engage in reckless populism. In other words, do nice things that make you appear to be responding to the needs of the most needy in our society, when in fact you're not going to be able to deliver on those needs, or if you do deliver, you'll actually cause collateral damage to a whole lot of other things. So I think as part of this change, as part of reaching out to the next milestone, as part of ensuring that there are the correct outcomes in the December conference, and as part of ensuring the ANC a victory in 2019 as well, there's a lot of rectification that actually needs to happen to make sure that we go back to the right way of operating both the economy and the fiscal environment, and re-establish the balances.
I'm going to take advantage of something that you said.
You're taking too much of advantage, but go ahead.
You said that we are not going to make populist statements just so we can be in power and things like that. What do you make of the call for radical economic transformation? Even better yet, what is radical economic transformation?
Look, if you give the right kind of interpretation to it, then it is part of the historical undoing of our past and the remaking of our future. And what that means is that there are certain things we've inherited from our past which are unacceptable, which are iniquitous, and don't fit into a modern economy. So you can't have 6 million young people walking the streets without training, without jobs, and without some way in which they could establish or even design an aspiration for themselves. Secondly, the disparity in the ownership patterns in our economy, but just the exclusion of black people over the years, including now, is also unacceptable. So all of us as South Africans need to have not just a frank conversation, but engage in a creative exercise to say what are the new ways in which we can actually in the next 5 to 10 years radically change the way in which inclusivity is actually practiced in our economy. A third issue is the question of ownership of assets. There's a disproportionate ownership of assets in South Africa. A large percentage of black people have no asset, nothing that they can pass on to their children. So what they pass on to their children is poverty.
The ANC has been in power since 1994. The situation has been the same since 1994. Is radical economic transformation not just a catchy phrase that the ANC is using in order to preserve its status quo during the next elections?
No, no. For some, it's a convenient sounding populist phrase. For others, it's a reflection of the next set of tasks that we need to actually accomplish. So the latter is the way I would see it, that we've come a long way. Take any indicator, by the way, and you can go to any statistical organization or organization that reflects the facts about our society and economy, and it will show we've done magnificently well in the last 20 years. There are the opportunity costs on the one side that we need to take account of. And from time to time, any country and any leadership and any organization has to ask, now what next? And in that context, these are some of the issues that is unfinished business in South Africa.
You're a former finance minister, twice actually. What's your greatest fear for the economy?
That we don't find an inclusive path to grow in the future. Secondly, that we don't grow fast enough, meaning get more investment in our economy, both from within South Africa and outside of South Africa. And thirdly, that we don't transform the economy beyond what I've said into one that can actually dynamically compete in the world. We are a small country. Parts of our economy are very sophisticated and world-class. The rest of our economy is not in the same kind of position. But if your generation and the generation that follows is not well-trained, well-equipped, and agile enough to respond to changes that are happening in respect of technology, in terms of the global economic and trade environment and geopolitical developments as well, South Africa is not going to be able to compete. Now, all the numbers over the last 12 months have shown that we've declined in the world scales. Whether it's the World Competitiveness Report, the Doing Business Report, and so on.
The integrity.
We need to recover from that.
There's been a lot of public awareness with regards to state capture. Do you think the state capture project itself has plateaued because of the public awareness, or do you think it's still very much alive?
No, it's very much alive. It's very much alive. There's some interruptions as a result of interventions of the public protector, some of the work that is going on in Parliament at the moment.
Are these just hurdles along the way?
And some of the challenges that are within the organizations that are affected themselves. But South Africa is still losing billions of rands in a month.
What can we do about it? And ultimately, the rot needs to stop. Therefore, we need to hold someone, a first person, accountable. How are we there where we have no one single person accountable for this rot, this billions of rands?
Well, we go back to your earlier point. You know, is it necessary for society in general to become A, aware, be conscious that these matters actually affect them directly, they're not just academic matters, and thirdly, that all of us, whichever part of society we sit in, need to become active in some kind of way to indicate our displeasure. And then you'll see the balance changing. And those who occupy positions in various organizations will be a lot more careful. I think that they are aware that there's a huge public displeasure, to put it mildly, about what is going on. So, you know, here's this 50 billion rand locomotive deal, 5 billion rand commission sitting in some foreign bank. Now, we know all of these things. When are we going to get that money back? That money belongs to South Africa.
Do you think there's any hope of getting that money back?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Foreign assets can be frozen by working with authorities all over the world, whether in the East or the West. That's South African money. We must chase South African money and we must bring it back. When I was at the Revenue Service, we did that with a few taxpayers. And we were able to do some interesting and innovative things. So yes, it's certainly possible. But let's raise the question amongst our own people. Are you aware that such a high commission was paid for doing nothing in a transaction involving locomotives? You know, similarly, I mean, what is the CEO of Transnet doing about this? Because that's where it happened. You know, and today, I think some of those facts are known. A little bit more pressure is required for boards to continue to own up to what's been happening before their time or during their watch. Those directors on these boards that have been guilty of malfeasance or not governing properly what are public assets at the end of the day need to be listed as delinquent directors so that they don't hold directorships in other companies as well.
You're on record saying that the new inquiry into tax administration in South Africa will not work as long as Tom Moyane is at the helm. What is it about the character of Tom Moyane that unsettles you as a former
No, I don't want to
commissioner?
discuss personalities. What I did say, and that's not what I said, what I did say is I'm wondering whether this is a mask for activities that have already gone on and could be still going on, firstly. Secondly, I said that the problem is well known, and that is that, again, as part of the state capture process, remember, you go in either at a board level or at a management level or at both levels, you displace good people, you replace them with people who would actually promote your initiative or your particular set of interests. I think that has certainly happened at SARS. Everybody knows it, and there's enough evidence out there in the public domain. You're going to get all sorts of anger and reaction and statements being issued, including threats of one sort or another. But the fact of the matter is a very proud organization that we created that held South Africa in good stead around the world is slowly being undermined. So we don't need a commission of inquiry. We've had the Judge Davis tax panel that has done work. You've had a report from another judge, Judge Ngwepe, the tax ombud, who said, yes, holding back tax refunds is a fact of life. Now, what other investigation do you want? What you want is the public, particularly if you're a business person, you want to know that when you have legitimate business being done, when you've submitted all of your documents and you've passed whatever audit tests you need to pass, give them the refunds that they want, right? It's a simple matter. Now, in case you're not aware, refund manipulation is a key area and an important leverage for revenue manipulation at the end of the day. So you can look pretty good if you do the right things over a period of time.
If you don't pay your refund on time.
Yeah, I mean, there's suspicion that, you know, special people get special deals now. Now, that never happened before. There were particular integrity standards that were set and risk management processes that were set, where if you were meeting a taxpayer as a tax administrator, you would not meet that taxpayer alone. You would always be accompanied by somebody else, if not somebody else, right? So that there's a check and balance on what is the negotiation about and what was the outcome, and whether the outcome is consistent with what the law allows or doesn't allow. Is that practice still there in the right places where it actually matters in terms of the quantum of money is involved? Is a question that anybody can interrogate quite easily. So let's wait and see what the terms of reference are. There are many efforts that have been made to obfuscate things, you know, to confuse us as the South African public, take matters to court when there's no necessity to actually do so, and so on. So one hopes that this is not yet another effort. But if you have a sense of urgency about the key institution that delivers money, that will enable you to deliver programs to the poorest of South Africa, then what you need to do is very obvious.
When the minister spoke a couple of weeks ago during his midterm budget policy statement, he spoke about a 50 billion rand tax shortfall. Is that as a function of SARS inefficiencies? And I ask you, as a man who's been at the helm of both those institutions, Treasury and SARS, or is it just a function of the economy, you think?
No, it's a combination of factors. So the factors would be the economy. But remember, we lost about that amount when we were hit by the Great Recession, where the damage to our economy was far more serious, and when the loss was 60 billion rands in revenue. Secondly, it will be the political environment, so people are beginning to lose trust in government. Thirdly, there's the quality and the standard of compliance among society, and you can see and hear the discourse that is going on at the moment. Fourthly, it will be the SARS competency, both in terms of the skills levels, but also the manner in which tax administration takes place. You see, you can run a tax administration by just processing paper in an electronic sense or in a physical sense, or you can run a tax administration by doing those things as basic things, but also have extraordinary things happening, which basically sends a message out that if you are going to be deviant in any serious kind of way, there's an ability to spot who you are. I think that is being lost over a period of time. And so if you interview tax practitioners and others, they'll tell you.
You've been seen at Jacques Pauw's book launch. Two-folded question. What do you make of the book? Does it connect enough dots? And what do you make of your comrades' and colleagues' reaction to the book?
No, I haven't read the book yet fully. I've read parts of it, firstly. Secondly, there's some fake news moving around, so thank you for the opportunity to clarify it through your channel, which says I wrote the book. I met, I think, Mr. Pauw probably for the first time. Might have encountered him somewhere over the years, but yesterday was the first time I met him properly. Thirdly, I just went there as a private citizen because I live in that area, and said, let's go and have a look at what this thing was about. And then suddenly people started approaching me to say, give us your signature. I didn't go there to sign books. I went there simply as an observer and a member of the public. And fourthly, there's a story there that South Africans need to take account of.
What do you make
And
of
those who think that there are factually incorrect things in that book must then state what the alternate facts are, you know, rather than scaremongering that is going on at the moment. There's enough. We are a very open society. Many institutions are damaged, but many institutions still work, such as the Ombudsman, if there's a media matter, such as the courts, if there are other matters, and the media itself can give a balanced account of, you know, this was stated in the book, but this is the fact, and here's the proof. Simple proposition. But unfortunately, in the environment that we find ourselves in, that's unlikely to be the outcome. So one watches with great interest the dynamics that are unfolding.
The president's keepers and the Gupta family say a negative narrative about this country. What do you make of what it says, and what should we be feeling about that?
No, what it says, and if you place it in context, is outside of the book, we are a country that has done fantastically well. We are a country where that progress has been undermined in recent years. But we are also a country of great hope and optimism and determination to overcome this particular period and put ourselves back on track. Secondly, contributions like the book and other disclosures help us to understand the state of affairs and the kind of aberrations that are happening in our society at the moment. Hopefully those are not becoming endemic, meaning they're becoming deep-rooted. And it draws our attention. It's like going to a doctor and suddenly the doctor says, you have a spot of cancer. Now, you have two choices. You can either deal with it and excise it, or say, doctor, I'll see you in a year's time. Right? And in a year's time, that cancer would have spread elsewhere. So these phenomena, the book, the emails, etc., and other disclosures, enable us to spot the cancer. Right? And now it's up to society to say, doctor, remove it. I don't want this cancer to grow. We don't need this cancer as part of our body makeup, because eventually it will destroy us.
Those two things, the book and this immigrant family that's come to South Africa, the group that's intimate that this country can be for sale. How does that sit with you and your comrades?
No, but I think many of us have said this country is not for sale. And they might think it's available to them. And parts of the country might have been and still is available to them. And as you know, the other day in Parliament, we had a witness who actually said that in a so-called tea conversation in an apartment or whatever near Melrose Arch, there were 4 people present. And one of the comments made by one of the Guptas was, oh, we'll contact somebody in the Deputy Judge President's office and make sure that the Molefe case is delayed beyond December. Now, do they really have somebody there? Or was that
judiciary captured?
Was that? No, I don't think the judiciary is captured. But, you know, I'm sure the Judge President's office is taking that seriously and looking into that matter, because South Africa will be very interested in knowing what's going on. And what gives these guys this confidence that they can reach anybody, they can buy anybody, and so on. But they can't buy all of us.
Well, that's all the time we had on the second edition of Political Capital. I'll be putting somebody else in the hot seat the next time. Look out for my conversation with Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Until Tuesday,